Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Mom Mode. On this week's episode, we have Leslee Flannery on to talk all things gestational diabetes. And I'm just so excited to dive in and learn about this topic because this is something that I hear about all the time and I know nothing about it. So I'm just excited to have you here, Leslie. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know who you are, can you just give us a little intro into who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Leslee Flannery, a registered dietitian. I have been a dietitian now for 13 years. And of those 13 years, I've always worked with prenatal women. So pregnant women, breastfeeding women. It is just my passion in life. I started at a WIC, if you're familiar, Women, Infant, Children. It's a government funded program that provides nutrition and really loved like the pregnancy stage of nutrition and helping women because I found that there was like a gap in just nutrition education. Like, here's your prenatal, bye. Like, what else? So
Yeah.
that really picked up my interest in it. And I felt like pregnant women wanted the information. It just wasn't being given. And then about 7 years ago, actually, I started working specifically with gestational diabetes, which is a condition that you develop in pregnancy. So just got a little more specialized in the needs of pregnant women. And in 2020, I started my own private practice and have been doing that ever since.
Wow. Well, I love that journey of like explaining how you kind of got to gestational diabetes because I was wondering, I'm like, did you have a personal experience? How did you choose gestational diabetes? Um,
Yeah.
and I love that. So, with working with women with nutrition, what were you finding? Like, were you finding a correlation between certain nutritional factors with pregnant women and them developing gestational diabetes, or how does gestational diabetes occur?
Yeah, it's a good question. And still, I feel like there's still unanswered questions. And it's hard because each one of us is so different in our makeup, our genetics, possible risk factors, the way we eat, our preferences. So, like, there's so many things that go into it. But at the center of it, it's really the placenta that develops in pregnancy to feed and nourish the baby that sends off hormones, which are good. We need them, but that makes us more insulin resistant, AKA higher blood sugars in pregnancy. So it really, the root cause of gestational diabetes is the placenta and the hormones. The reason that someone may get it and someone may not, sometimes it's kind of hard to piece that out. But there are risk factors like if you're over 35, if you've had a previous gestational diabetic pregnancy, if you have any genetic factor like mom, dad have type 2 diabetes, you're more likely to develop gestational. If you are of Asian descent, there's more likely a risk to have gestational diabetes. If you have PCOS, which is a condition that some women
Yeah.
can have, and that causes insulin resistance in itself. And so then if you become pregnant, now it's stronger insulin resistance. So more likely to develop gestational diabetes. But even sometimes with people that have some risk factors like that, they might not end up with it. So it is kind of just a wait and see what happens kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, like you said, everyone's genetic makeup's different, every pregnancy is different. Do you think that obviously your chances are higher if you already have something going on? And do you think there's any test? Like, is there anything that you can do? Let's say you had a pregnancy, you had gestational diabetes, you're in your postpartum phase, you're healing. Is there anything that you think that, like any blood tests or anything that someone can do to help maybe not have it a second time?
Yeah, I would highly recommend, especially if you had a gestational diabetic pregnancy previously, to keep up to date on your A1C. What an A1C is, it is a diagnostic blood test to tell if someone has diabetes or not. But it can also pick up on if you are pre-diabetic, so that means there's some insulin resistance happening, or no blood sugar issues at all. So I would love for someone like in the preconception stage, before thinking about getting pregnant, especially if you have any risk factors, that you get your A1C checked to see, is there any insulin resistance even going on before pregnancy? If there's
Okay.
not, that doesn't mean that you still won't develop it, but less likely if you don't have
Okay.
insulin resistance before pregnancy.
Wow. So that's so interesting. As far as so if it develops when when that placenta is developing, obviously we know that we have it once we do the drink, right? Isn't that what's kind of and like isn't that kind of far along in pregnancy to wait, or does it just take that long of time to then understand that your body's developing it?
Correct. So the placenta develops towards the end, like it really gets going towards the end of like the first trimester. So it's not fully developed right at the beginning of pregnancy for sure. And then as the pregnancy progresses, it gets stronger because the baby's growing more and the placenta is what nourishes and feeds the baby. So it grows and kind of gets stronger along with the pregnancy. So we
Mhm.
really see the insulin resistance kind of come about if it's going to happen starting more towards the end of the second trimester. That's why they usually screen anywhere between 24 and 28 weeks. And then so the screening is a 1 hour test, right? It's the
Yep.
50 grams of the liquid sugar, the glucola drink that is not my favorite thing in the world.
No.
If you get a high number on that, then they will take you to the actual like diagnostic test, the glucose tolerance test, which is the 3 hour drink. And that one, I actually failed my 1 hour in my first pregnancy and had to take that 3 hour drink in my first pregnancy. And let me just tell you, it's not my favorite drink either. It's very strong. And then if you fail 2 out of 4 blood draws, so like meaning you get too high numbers out of the 4 numbers that they test, that is officially a diagnosis.
Okay. So you go from the 1 hour to the three
Mhm.
hour. So you
Correct.
take a 3 hour drink. And is it similar? Like you're drinking another drink that's super
It's
sugary?
actually more sugar. It's
More.
100 grams of sugar.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
So,
And the 1 hour's 50 grams. There is a 2 hour test. It's not commonly used for gestational diabetes, but sometimes it is. And I know in other countries it is. It's 75 grams of sugar. So it just gradually goes up.
okay. So with drinking that drink, is there another option? Like how you said you didn't like it. I know I didn't like it. Is there an option that we can ask our doctors about? Maybe they'll tell us no. I don't know if they can tell us no, but what if we're like, we really don't feel good after drinking this? I haven't had problems before. Is there an alternative that we can be
Yes.
asking for?
There is, and most doctors are okay for you to do this. But if you actually track your blood sugars at home, I wouldn't recommend changing anything about the way you're eating. Just eat normally because we want to see, is there truly insulin resistance happening, right? And so if you like totally change your diet, we won't really know. Is that because you change your diet So I would keep your normal diet, but you actually track your blood sugar for 2 weeks and you track 4 times a day. So you're going to look at your fasting blood sugar and then you're going to take either a 1 or a 2 hour blood sugar after breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you're testing 4 times a day for 2 weeks. And then you hand that information over to your doctor and they can look at that and say, okay, it looks like, yes, you do have gestational diabetes, or things look good. No, you're good to go. So that is an alternative. If you don't want to do the drink, I would definitely ask your provider about that. There's also another company called Fresh Test, which I have not personally taken that drink. I don't know if that existed when I was pregnant with my babies. But it is like a powder that you mix in with a drink. And from what I've heard from clients, they like that a little bit better than the glucola drink. So that's another thing that you could ask your doctor about is like, hey, can I try this Fresh Test drink option versus the glucola drink? So those are the two alternatives right now.
Okay. Now, for the first one, when you're testing your blood sugar, are you like pricking your finger with something, or is that how
Yes.
you're kind of testing it?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So you
S-
you test your blood sugar by poking your finger and then putting it on a strip, and then the meter reads it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's better because I'm also not a big fan of needles. So I'm
Yeah,
like, wait,
I know.
maybe I'll just drink the drink.
And yeah,
Um,
some people do think that. They're like, "I'll just go ahead and do the drink because I don't wanna do all that." But there's, options. It's good to have
yeah.
options.
No, it's definitely good to have options. And that's good to know because, yeah, I mean, there might be some women who have horrific experiences with the drink and they're like, I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Um, as far as with gestational diabetes developing, does that affect the baby at all?
So if your blood sugars stay consistently higher, that's what we worry about. That's when it can start to impact the baby. So when we're testing you and screening you and it's coming out that yeah, it looks like there's some insulin resistance happening, your blood sugars are staying a little higher than they should. Um, it doesn't mean that like, okay, I failed my 3-hour test. Oh my gosh, have I done some kind of harm already that I don't know about? Typically the answer is no because they choose to screen women at the time they know that it kicks in, so you're being screened at usually the proper time, to not miss anything. um, if your blood sugars stay high consistently, then the baby can start to put on fat, like distribute its fat disproportionately. So usually a lot more fat settles here in the shoulders and sometimes in the tummy area, compared to a baby whose mom does not have gestational diabetes. So the worry in that is if they have more fat around their shoulders, they can get stuck in a vaginal
Mhm.
delivery. So, they want to really monitor the baby's size, the abdominal circumference, like the baby's tummy size, essentially. We would want to make sure that that is proportionate to the rest of the body. So even if the baby's overall body is kind of like hanging out at the 80th percentile, we would want the abdominal circumference to be about the same. If the
Okay.
abdominal circumference is measuring much larger, that is usually it can be an indication that mom's blood sugars are high. They're going to the baby. The baby has to produce its own insulin to lower their own blood sugar. And so that tummy size being bigger is usually a sign they have more insulin in their body. And
Okay.
then that can be an issue because when you deliver the baby, then you cut the umbilical cord. So they no longer have mom's nutrition coming in, but they have extra insulin in their body. So they could have a low blood sugar, would be the issue with that.
Okay. And
And then
I was going to ask what happens if that's the case. So, if a baby does come out, they have, that extra insulin. How do they treat that? And is that something that can be treated right then and there, or is that something that can cause long-term issues?
yeah, usually not long-term issues that I'm aware of. It's more in the moment, and those low blood sugars and baby being able to bring them up kind of exists on a spectrum. So we could have a situation where a baby's blood sugar is just right under the threshold. Because
Mhm.
they'll test the baby's blood sugar. Usually, I'm pretty sure most hospital policies is they test the baby's blood sugars at least 4 times before they discharge them home to make sure they're good. So if that initial blood sugar is a little low, the treatment for that is to feed them, to get
Okay.
to get food in them. So, whether that's breastfeeding them or formula feeding them, sometimes they might need extra feeds. So, I recommend to all of my moms, my clients who want to breastfeed to like collect some colostrum ahead of time
Mhm.
and take it to the hospital with you. So that way, like if you are really wanting to direct breastfeed and exclusively breastfeed, you have colostrum that you can supplement those feeds with, because otherwise a lot of times the hospitals will just give like sugar water to bring the baby's blood sugar up or formula, and some moms
Yeah.
don't want to do that. I mean, some, if you're okay with that, that's kind of what they'd use to treat otherwise.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, when a mom develops gestational diabetes, what does that journey look like the rest of the pregnancy? Are they testing it more often? Do you need to change the way that you're eating? Is there a medication that you're put on? What does that look like?
Yeah, good question, and it looks different, I would say, for everybody.
Okay.
So, you will have to test your blood sugars 4 times a day, kinda like that screening that I mentioned. So that
Okay.
screening is kinda like you have it for 2 weeks. So once you're diagnosed, they're gonna want you to test your fasting blood sugar, which is the first blood sugar in the morning. So after you wake up from sleeping, you test your blood sugar first thing in the morning, and then you are gonna test. Some providers want a 1-hour number and some want a 2-hour number, but either way, you're gonna be testing after, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So 4 times a day. Some women are able to stay diet controlled, meaning they don't need medication. So they are just, controlling their blood sugars with diet and lifestyle. And then some women, even when they're doing everything by the books with their diet and their lifestyle, sometimes hormones are just strong. And sometimes
Mhm.
medication has to be involved. And there's oral medication or there's insulin, which is an injection medication.
Okay.
So some women are able to stay off of medication. Some women need medication. It's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay. So when you're testing your blood sugars, once you're diagnosed with gestational diabetes, that is what you'll need to do for the remainder of the pregnancy.
Correct.
And then as far as diet, what is like a typical recommendation like, hey, I have gestational diabetes, like when you work with somebody. And I'm sure like a lot of the clients that you work with, do they come to you after developing or maybe some come to you because they've had it, correct? Probably
Yes.
different
Yeah,
circumstances.
both. Hmm.
What does like the dietary and lifestyle look like then? Obviously maybe different for everyone, but like what is kind of a basic guideline of what to do?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because a lot of what I do is doing stigmas surrounding like what to eat with blood sugars because right we think like carbohydrates are bad, they're not good. Everyone, I mean, just in the general public, it's like we want to eat more protein and less carb, but that can really backfire for blood sugars especially. So my recommendation and my method, the way I teach, is we really should eat consistently, meaning like every 2 to 3 hours a meal or a snack, especially if you're in your third trimester, because there's an extra 450 calories a day needed in the third trimester. So if we're like
Wow.
dieting and restricting essentially, then we're not really helping the growth of the pregnancy.
Yep.
Um, so eating consistently is my biggest tip to keep blood sugars consistent so that you're
Okay.
not going like 5, 6 hours without eating. It's not great for blood sugars.
Okay.
And then my next tip is like, do not cut your carbs out. Eat carbs. I mean, the way in which you portion them and have protein with it and fiber and fat is really important. But try to avoid restricting them completely because I think that is a lot of the misconception with blood
Mhm.
sugars in general, but specifically with gestational diabetes is that like, oh, my doctor told me I have to cut carbs, my provider told me I can't eat carbs, but we do need them. It just, eating them in the right portion and making sure you have balance with your meals.
Yeah, and why do they come to you or why do you think they're being told that they should cut carbs? What is that stigma around that?
I think, so carbohydrates, if we have three macronutrients, carbohydrate, protein, fat, carbohydrates turn to glucose. So I
Mhm.
think if that's kind of all we really know is that carbohydrates make my blood sugar higher. And then unfortunately, a lot of doctors and nurses, not to put what they do down, what they do is important, they don't have a lot of nutrition background. And so
Yeah.
if they don't really know, they might say, oh, well, I know carbohydrates make glucose, so I'm going to tell people not to have that so their blood sugars don't go high. But it's really not about taking them all out. It's about having them in the proper portion size, eating them consistently, like not saving it all for dinner and overeating carbs and then having none for breakfast. You know what I mean? It's like portioning them and pairing them and spacing them apart is really important. So I think it's honestly just misinformation on how
Yeah.
carbs are bad when really they're not. We need them and the baby needs them too.
Yeah, I feel like carbs is like just what I craved. I didn't even
Yeah.
necessarily like want to not eat them or eat them. It was just what my body needed. Like sometimes you're just in survival mode of
Yes.
just wanting to feel full, not wanting to feel nauseous, and like I always reached for carbs.
And it's interesting
Um
you say that about nausea because, like, carbs are digested the quickest and the easiest. So when we are
mhm.
sick, whether it's like, I'm just sick today or it's like morning sickness, that's what our body craves because we know we're going to tolerate it. Like
Mhm.
vegetables are bitter. They're
Mm-mm.
not tasting good when we don't feel good. Protein takes a while to digest. Like, oh, that'll turn us off. Carbohydrates, our body is smart and it knows like that'll give us energy. We'll digest it. It's comfortable to us. So that is like an actual physiological thing that we crave carbs.
Wow, I didn't even realize
Yeah.
that that's the
Yeah.
fastest. So it's like, oh, do a carb and a protein because then you'll
Yes.
digest quickly and then you'll have the protein for later,
Yeah, eat
if
the
it
carb
digests
and the
slower.
protein together, and it helps
Yeah.
prevent the carb from spiking your blood sugar. That's really what it's about.
So that's the thing.
That's the thing.
Um, so every 2 to 3 hours, when someone has gestational diabetes, I mean, does it completely put them out the rest of their pregnancy? Like, a lot of times, do you think women, or maybe the women that you work with, maybe you've seen repetition, like, is it something that they already know they have before they're diagnosed? Like, I just don't feel good. I don't feel right. Like, can you feel the insulin spikes or the low insulin? Like, can you feel the changes happening?
Yeah, some I think, especially if they've had an experience of a gestational diabetic pregnancy before. I do have people
Mm-hmm.
reach out to me, like former clients, like I just know I can feel that I have it. So I definitely hear people say that. I think for others, it completely like hits them out of left field. Like it was not on their bingo card that they were going to get this.
Yeah.
It's very shocking. It's very almost like traumatic for them to process that they have this because sometimes I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times they blame themselves. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, I must not
Yeah.
have been doing something right to develop this. But again, it's that placenta. You know, the
Yep.
placenta is really what's causing all of this to happen. And there's nothing you can change about that.
Yeah. And so when that placenta is developing, like you said, it's just a mix of genetics. I mean, I wonder if
Mhm.
like the father's genetics play in that
Well, there
too.
is
Like you
some
just wonder.
research. Yeah, there's some new research saying that it does, that like the sperm does affect like the way our placenta is made. And so, I haven't seen a ton of it specifically related to gestational diabetes, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, interesting for
Or
sure.
just like paternal background. Like
Yeah.
does your, partner's parents or
Yeah.
was that something common in the background? Because I feel like now I feel like it's coming around to where they're starting to test more of like the men's side of things
Hmm.
for several different things, but you're like, wow, I can't believe it took so long almost because you just think like it's the women's body, but you're like, they have just as much of a play in the makeup here with
Yeah.
creating this
It's
this
true.
baby.
It's true. And to take
Um,
some pressure off of our shoulders, right? Like, it's a
yeah,
lot.
I know. I mean, I didn't develop gestational diabetes. I developed preeclampsia, but that's
Okay.
another placenta, you know.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely was like, I blame myself, but then I was like, well, I don't know. I feel like there's nothing I could have done.
Right.
Um, It's kind of just a
And
mixed bag of, well, there's probably a lot of different factors that played into that.
yeah, and pregnancy is hard on our bodies. Like, it
It
is just
is.
hard. And it's sometimes, I think, frustrating because you have like this in your mind. We have like, oh, it's going to be this great, joyous, wonderful experience. And you might not, like you said, like, I don't really even know that much about gestational diabetes. And I think that's what happens sometimes is women don't even know until they're
Yeah.
diagnosed. Like, what is this? So I almost wish it was talked about at like that early appointment. Preeclampsia, morning sickness, gestational diabetes, cholestasis, like all these things that can happen,
Yeah.
just so you're prepared and don't feel like, this is hitting me out of left field and I'm to blame.
Yeah. No, 100%. As far as women who have developed gestational diabetes, in their earlier pregnancies, do you think it's out of line for them to try to tackle, when they get pregnant again? Like, hey, do we have to wait until this certain week for me to test? Or is there something that I can do if I'm starting to develop this, I can get on top of it sooner versus waiting it
Yeah.
out?
So actually, if you have a history of a gestational diabetic pregnancy, they will screen you earlier. So they'll
Okay.
screen you towards the end of your first trimester when that placenta's getting going
Yep.
because sometimes hormones are stronger, and they see it develop a little bit sooner. Plus, I think they also, like providers might be concerned. Um, is there anything underlying happening? We know that this person was insulin resistant in their pregnancy. Could it have lingered in between the pregnancies? So they want to screen people earlier if you have had
Mhm.
gestational diabetes again, which is a good thing. If you pass it, say they test you at 13 weeks, you pass that, you'll still take it again at the 24 to 28 weeks, but they just want to make sure they're not missing anything.
Yeah, and I'm definitely the type of patient where I'd be like, "Screen me, I'm fine with
Yeah.
doing it twice, I just wanna be able to
Yeah.
get on top of it."
Yeah.
Um, As
But
far
yes, I
as
do have people tell me, like, I wanna get on top of it, and so they start with, like, balanced nutrition, balanced lifestyle a
yeah.
ahead of time leading up to it, and I have had quite a few women who sometimes I've worked with them in their previous pregnancy go on and be able to pass their test because they were proactive ahead of time, and
So
now can't guarantee that for everyone, but
definitely. Yeah, it's it's literally I just feel like it's like a mixed bag of like,
it
well,
is.
it
It is.
helped or it didn't. I mean, if anything, really handling your nutrition and eating healthier and eating more of a balanced diet, I feel like no matter what is just healthy in general. It's not going to lead you in the wrong direction. You might still develop
Right.
gestational diabetes, but overall for other various other reasons it could be good for you. Um
Mhm.
When you develop the gestational diabetes, is it ever something that can contribute to long-term effects? So, developing something after pregnancy is done. With like preeclampsia, for instance, a lot of times they've told me like you may have chronic high blood pressure later in life.
Mm.
It's not a guarantee, but it is something that can occur because I had the preeclampsia. So is there anything like that with gestational diabetes?
Yes, the statistics are not my favorite. So there's 2 kind of, different statistics out there. One study found that if you had gestational diabetes, you are 30 to 70% likely to develop gestational or to develop type 2 diabetes later on. Well, I'm like, 30 to 70%? That's a
It's
pretty
a
wide range.
very
So
wide.
I mean, I think the reason that is such a wide range is back to what we said in the beginning of like, there are so many factors. So, like,
Mhm.
someone could have a lot of risk factors and they're probably on that higher spectrum. Someone might only have had gestational diabetes, they have no other factors, they're going to be a lot lower risk to develop type 2, in my opinion. Um, that, and then there's another bit of research out there that says if you have all women, which I don't know if I love this, all women who have had gestational diabetes, of all women, 50% go on to develop type 2. So just a lot of kind of like numbers thrown out there. I think the important takeaway is to know that you have an increased risk to
Mhm.
develop type 2 diabetes. A
Mhm.
risk does not equal causation. So just because you have that risk does not mean you will have diabetes later in life, but it's
Yep.
definitely something you should keep an eye on. So that A1C test, it's like an average of the past 3 months of how your blood sugars have been running. I would recommend doing that on an annual basis. If you've had gestational diabetes, just always at your like annual check, have them run your A1C so you have like a finger on the pulse of what your blood sugars are like.
Okay. And it's just yeah, you just ask for the A1C test.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I feel like that's with anything with pregnancy. Like if you develop something, you always just have to keep an eye on it.
Yes.
And it's just something to be aware of. And it doesn't, like you said, I love how you said you're just at risk, doesn't mean you're gonna get it.
Uh-huh.
Um, when you work with clients,
Mhm.
um, and they've had gestational diabetes, they have their baby. Do you work with them with nutrition if they want to breastfeed?
I have some. Usually when they're done, I feel like most clients are like, done with gestational diabetes.
Yeah.
I do have like a little support group for postpartum moms to kind of come in and still get like recipes and meal and snack ideas and some extra support. But and I have like personally worked privately with specific clients who want help with breastfeeding and things like that. But in general, once they've delivered their baby, they're like, "Oh, I am
Yeah,
throwing this meter away. I am done."
I get it. I get it. It's funny because as you're talking about this, like it's so different, but like I had to take my blood pressure twice a day. Sometimes I took it 4 times a day, and it was one of those things that drove me nuts. I'm like, I never want to look at a blood pressure machine ever
Yeah.
again,
Yep.
and then
You
I'm
just need a
like,
break for a while.
yeah. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, if I test it this way and if I test it this way, it's different.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, I drove myself insane and I had to write down the numbers and take it to my
Yes.
doctor.
And that's very much what it can be like with tracking blood sugar is people get
Oh, yeah.
exhausted by it.
Well, and then
And so
you're
it's like
worried. 'Cause
yeah.
you're like, "Okay, wait, it's been very consistent," and then you might get a number that's high or too low, and you're
Yes.
freaking out, and then it causes anxiety. There's just so
Yes.
much that it can cause. Now, with you, like, do you have if someone were to work with you directly, do you have support groups or a group of women that, like, when they're going through gestational diabetes, they have an outlet and like a community that you can connect them to talk about these topics with other like women?
Yes. So the way my coaching program runs is when they sign up to work with me, they onboard with me privately, and then I review their weekly food logs. I have a private chat app where they can send me questions and messages all the time, but I also do a private Facebook page, and that is like our community. So all kinds of resources in there. They can ask each other questions, and it's a small, you know, nice little community. So it's not something like 1,000 people in it and overwhelming. It feels very like safe and secure, and I trust, these people to ask questions. So like the other day someone was, "Hey, what kind of like flavored water can I do?" So it was posted to the group, like, "Oh, I like this," and "Oh, I like that." And so they can kind of feel like they're not alone in it, which I think is
Yeah.
like one of the biggest components of all of this is it can be very isolating.
Yeah. Well, 100%. And that's why I'm like, if you're scared, if you're taking these blood, these levels, and it can give you like anxiety almost, like having to test it
Yeah.
every day, or you're just like, wow. I'm sure at times there's moms that are like, my pregnancy could have been so much better if I didn't have this. Um,
Yeah.
I feel like at the end of it, like once the pregnancy's over, like you said, and you're healing from it, you can just be like, you know what? That was just part of my pregnancy of bringing this little joy into our lives. It was part of the story. I'm glad it's over. Um,
Mhm.
Now, with the gestational diabetes, I just had a question that came to mind. When you deliver that baby, I mean, does it just go away or does it take time for your body to adjust?
Yeah, kind of back to like everyone's different,
Yeah.
but, you know, hypothetically, the way it technically would work is the placenta is causing that extra insulin resistance. And so when you deliver the baby and then you deliver the placenta, the the insulin resistance should be gone. It should go away.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of hormone shifting right after you deliver a baby. So it could be that I have a client, she just delivered. She's like, "Oh, my blood sugars are still up a little bit the day after delivery, but your hormones are still just not back to pre-pregnancy state right after you
Yeah.
deliver a baby." So, but yes, to answer your question, like in a just a concise way, yes, once you deliver the baby, gestational diabetes is resolved. Now, it could take maybe a little while to see your numbers kind of come back down to normal, but usually they kind of return right after you deliver.
So you had mentioned once you deliver, what something can return.
Yeah, your blood sugars usually return back to normal after delivery.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would make sense. And then I should have asked this when we were talking about how you can help the gestational diabetes. But if somebody were to have levels that needed medication, what does like the typical medication look like? Like, is there a standard one that somebody would take that you often see across the board? And would you say more often than not, like it is like that, or more, like, once again, probably just really dependent on the person on if they need it or
Yeah,
not?
good question. Insulin, which is something you would inject, is
Yep.
considered the gold standard for blood sugar treatment in pregnancy because it does not cross the placenta. So it helps to lower mom's blood sugars so that baby's blood sugars aren't high. Because if mom's blood sugars are high, the baby gets that high blood sugar through the placenta.
Through the
So
placenta.
so mom's insulin, and this is getting a little into the weeds, but mom's insulin that her body makes doesn't cross the placenta either. So that the only way for baby to lower their own blood sugars is to produce more insulin, which we don't want. So the gold standard is to give mom insulin. There are some providers who use metformin or even like glyburide, which are oral pills essentially.
Mhm.
They do cross the placenta. Isn't any research that really shows any adverse outcomes for baby, like no negative outcomes long term, even though it does cross the placenta. Um, but most providers want to use insulin because of that reason. And metformin in pregnancy, it's not known to like help blood sugars as well as insulin does.
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously your amount would depend on what you need, right? Because I'm assuming everyone's amount might look a little different.
Yep, yep. It's based on like mom's height, weight, and then also what they usually do if you start insulin is they start you on a really low dose with the understanding that like a low dose, it might not bring your blood sugars down the first day or the second day, but they want to gradually go up instead of starting you on a high dose and now your blood sugars are going really low. So they want to gradually go and find the
Yeah.
number that works best for you. So yeah, it is just kind of finding that sweet spot.
Yeah. So they'll test your level, you'll just see where your levels are at based
Yes,
on how much you're
exactly.
getting. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Um, so with all of this knowledge, like how did you, when you were working in the space of like nutrition with like pregnancy women, kids, infants, what really guided you into this gestational diabetes space and like your love for it?
Yeah, I mean, where I was before with pregnancy was kind of general nutrition, which I loved. And like I said, I do still think there's kind of a gap in nutrition education for just pregnant women in general.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that was 13 years ago. Nowadays, there's all kinds of good information on social media and things like that. Um, but you don't have dietitians and OB offices, to
No.
just come talk to pregnant women. And so really, I wanted to specialize in something at this point in my career. And I was driving 45 minutes away from my house every day. And I had a baby too. And so a job opened up near me in a maternal fetal medicine office for a gestational diabetes dietitian. And I thought, oh, I'm already in pregnancy. Like, this is my dream job if I can just get it.
Mhm.
And so I got it. And I found like, pregnant women are very motivated to make change, and so they wanted the information that I was giving them.
Yep.
Um, I could tell you in nutrition, that's not always the case. Sometimes, with the general public, sometimes getting nutrition education is not the most fun thing, but pregnant women, especially that are trying to manage their blood sugars and really need the education, they want the education. Like, that is what I have found, and so that's what makes me so passionate about it, is, like, I love to educate, and they love to get it they love to soak it up, so, it has just been so much fun. I love it.
Yeah. Um, and when you opened up, like what kind of geared you toward opening up your own private practice? Was it just, you said it was around 2020. So it was kind of like
Mm.
around when COVID was happening and you're like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it now.
Yes, and I found so I was I'm in Dayton, Ohio, not a really huge city. We're about 45 minutes north of Cincinnati. I was working there like 2.5 or 3 days a week. I mean, that's like my patient load. There wasn't a ton of people to be seen. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, if all of these people that I'm seeing are like, I had no idea. I've never known about this. I don't know how to eat. This is so helpful. And I was really only getting to see them one time. Like, if
Hmm.
everybody is like so in need of this here in Dayton, Ohio, like everywhere, I bet everywhere would love to know this information. So I'm like, I had some friends that were doing dietitian things on Instagram. I'm like, let me just see how this goes, which is wild to me working in healthcare. Like, I'm going to put myself out there on Instagram.
Yeah.
But it was, people are just like, oh my gosh, like I never knew this. And it just kind of took off like wildfire. And so I thought I could do this in a much bigger way on my own.
Yeah. Like have a bigger reach, help more women.
Yes.
Um, now, can you work with anybody like in the United States or like what does that look like for you? So if somebody was interested in working with you, they would just kind of, I mean, obviously I can link your Instagram, but there's probably a website or a contact form on like that they would maybe fill out or how does that look?
Yeah, they can find my application on my website, which is gdmnutrition.com. I work with actually everyone in the United States. I work with international clients. So, yeah, it's private coaching. I mean, I take it very seriously. I feel like I'm pretty close with my clients. I get to know them very intimately and know like about them, their family, their life, and they are sending me questions on my phone all the time. And so, I feel like if you're lost, if you're feeling lost and overwhelmed and stuck, definitely reach out because there is help to be had for sure.
Yeah. And do you have like different programs based on like if someone's currently pregnant or if they are looking to kind of prep their body for their next pregnancy and hopefully have a better outcome? Like, are there different options of how to work with you?
Yeah, so I keep the same program. I've done in the past different things, and it just gets to be a bit confusing. So, my
Yeah.
method and the way I teach balancing blood sugars, it would be for someone who is pre diabetic, type 2 diabetic, gestational diabetic. Pregnancy, because of the placenta, obviously makes gestational diabetes a little bit different than type 2 diabetes, but my method is the same in the eating and the patterns and you have to have fiber and exercise and all of that. So, like, actually, right now, I have a client who is just like you mentioned, she's not pregnant and she's in the program. So, she is hoping to become pregnant and she's had gestational diabetes and she wants to get a good handle on things. So, I've had clients like that. So, yeah, if you're pregnant, not pregnant, if you're pregnant but don't have gestational diabetes, anybody can fit in there in that umbrella.
Awesome. And then you
Mhm.
mentioned lifestyle. So obviously nutrition is a part of it. What kind of lifestyle factors are you kind of, I guess, suggesting when you say lifestyle? Like, what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, movement is important. So, anytime your muscles are moving, whether you're doing strength training or walking or like a Peloton bike ride, anytime your muscles are moving, they're requiring glucose, your blood sugar, for energy. So it's a natural way to lower your blood sugar. So it is important to do. Now, I will say, and I can say this because I'm a recovering cardio queen myself, that I think things like HIIT workouts or like really strenuous bike rides or runs sometimes can backfire a little bit for blood sugars in pregnancy because they can naturally elevate our cortisol levels.
Hmm.
And cortisol, if our cortisol is high, elevates our blood sugar. So I am like, let's do gentle things. Let's walk. Let's do yoga. Let's do strength training. Let's not do anything that's going to backfire. But that's the nice thing is I can see exactly what they're doing because they share a food log with me and it has their lifestyle habits in there too. So for
Okay.
some people, oh, that HIIT workout, it is elevating your blood sugar. Let's move it to a different time of day or let's cut that out. But other people, another client over here, client B, oh, your HIIT workout is not causing any issues. Go ahead. So it's like not cookie cutter, which I think a lot of people appreciate.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you as a person. Like, what is it doing to you? Because that's the most important thing, not what, someone over here is doing.
Yeah. It's interesting because I do Orange Theory.
Yeah,
And with, I go and see like a functional medicine doctor and, because I was trying to get a handle on like, hey, how do I not develop preeclampsia again? And once again, there's no guarantee, but I wanted to do what I could to really heal my body. And she was like, I really don't know if that's going to be the best workout for you because of the cortisol and like it almost overstimulating like my nervous system.
yeah,
Um, and so she's like, give it a try, go based on how you're feeling though. If you feel like super overstimulated and like jittery and just like it's too much, like you need to just learn to slow it down. And
100%.
there was a pregnant woman in my class, and it's funny because I'm like, I was watching her and I'm like, she's not doing everything they're saying to do, right? She's doing the treadmill at her pace. She'll get on the
Hmm.
bike if we're on the rowers. She'll use
Hmm.
lighter weights. Some of the workouts she's not doing. So you really have to probably just go based on how you're feeling. And then how you're saying they're like, doing their workout in the morning, is it because they're taking their blood sugar after that workout that you see that it's spiking their insulin, or how is that? How are you?
It can be. So, like, I think myself included, I think a lot of women that I've talked to like to work out first thing in the morning fasted, like,
Yeah.
not a lot stomach.
Yeah.
I get it. I like to do that too. Um, but can backfire because in pregnancy, you with the higher calorie demand, if you're not getting enough carb during the day, the liver will make glucose for you, whether you want it to or not. And that usually we see that like dumping happening early in those morning hours. So if we wake up, you haven't eaten, and the longer the fast, the more the blood sugar goes up. So we're fasting, fasting, fasting. blood sugar goes up. And by the way, for everybody, pregnant or not pregnant, our cortisol levels are just higher in the morning anyway.
Okay.
So if I wake up, my cortisol levels are maybe high, I'm fasting, it's a perfect storm for that workout to elevate you. Now, again, my thought is, and I will tell this to people if they're like, that's the only time I can work out. I love to do that. Please don't make me change that. And I'm like, if it is not causing your blood sugars to be elevated, no need to change it. Because I'm
Yep.
not a dietitian that believes in like rules just for the sake of rules. I want you to live your life and I want to make this as easy as possible, not as stressful as possible. So if you want to work out in the morning and it's not causing your blood sugars to elevate, you should definitely do that.
Do you think that eating something before the workout is beneficial to it not being the perfect storm? If you
Yes,
wanna, like, work out in the morning?
because yes, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be like a traditional breakfast. It could be a handful of trail mix. It could be like a protein bar or even half of a protein bar. Just something to stabilize your blood sugar, to prevent the liver from dumping more glucose out. It's like, hey, I'm giving you carb, body. Don't make me extra glucose right now.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing, and that's so interesting because I feel like, I've heard about more women having PCOS. I've heard more about gestational diabetes more than I ever have, and you do wonder if there is something connected to this whole carbohydrate thing, where it's like, the focus right now is eat a ton of protein, 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 protein. We don't need carbs. When like, no, carbs
Hmm.
are a part of what you should be eating. It's a mix. It's
Hmm.
not, let's take this
Yeah.
out. So you almost wonder, um, you
It's
know,
just, I think what's happening is like, it's okay. Maybe if someone does overeat carbs, but I'm telling you, I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands of women at this point. A lot of us, we're not overeating carbs, like from the
yeah.
start. And so if we're like, oh, if we're overeating, just assuming we are, most women aren't, but if we are overeating, the solution isn't to swing to the complete other side. It's just here in the middle. Like balance is the key,
Hmm.
but that's not really flashy. It's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't sell a lot, like, "Ooh, balance," it's more like, "Oh, do a lot of protein,
The
like, cut
next thing, then the
carbs."
next thing.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
wait, we've been doing protein. That's wrong. Now it's this. It's
And
just
it's
these
hard to sort
trends.
through it all, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That
It's just
makes
balance.
sense. Balance. Well, anybody
Mhm.
listening, balance with your
Balance is the
diet.
key word. Yes, yes.
um, for just like advice for women, moms who are listening who, have had gestational diabetes, are nervous to get it because maybe their mom, has had it. And so they think that they're on the, you know, radar for having it. What advice can you give that mom that is going through like those emotions of either fear that they have it or fear that they may develop it?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is give yourself grace. I know it's not like a nutrition thing, but really truly give yourself some grace because this is brand new. Probably have never had to do this before, test your blood sugar, learn about it. Even if you have had gestational diabetes before, it's a stressful thing. It's overwhelming. Take it day by day, meal by meal. Understand that you're learning something new. Be nice to yourself. What would you tell another mom friend or your sister or your cousin or your aunt? Like just be
Hmm.
understanding that it's not your fault. You'll figure it out. It's okay if you have a few high numbers here or there. Ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing. Ask questions of your provider. Make them explain things to you. If they tell you, like, you have to start medicine and you're not ready, ask for what are the risks and benefits? What are the alternatives? What if I wait a week? Like, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, because I really think that is so important. Not that doctors don't want you to, they just are really busy during their day and they know everything, right? And so they don't know what you don't know unless you tell them.
Hmm.
So just ask a lot of questions.
I love that. That's something that I don't feel that a lot of new moms are aware of. I feel like being a second time mom, and I'm not a second time mom yet, but you do think like, what would I have done differently? And you start to realize like, oh, I have the right to ask questions, because
Mhm.
you don't have this blindfold on of like doing it for the first time. So
Yeah.
I love that because yeah, that's just so important. And like, why am I taking this medication? What are the risks of it? What if I
Mhm.
didn't? What could happen?
Mhm.
Versus just like taking it. And then when someone's like, oh, how is that helping you? Don't know. Can that affect the baby? I don't know. Um, because I feel like that
Yeah.
happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been super informative. I feel like I
Yeah.
learned a ton. I hope this is super helpful for moms and just women who are looking to become moms that are listening. And I just really appreciate you coming on the podcast, Leslie. It's been great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.